I really don't care what happens to her at all. I don't care. Like, everybody they tiptoe around with this social media. But what y'all don't get is that it be real consequence for y'all little flexes, y'all quick flexes for $300 that you need. It be consequences.
Teyana Taylor has officially reached her breaking point, and this time it's not about love or rumors. It's about money. Reports are coming in that Teyana discovered something deeply unsettling. Her ex, Iman Shumpert, allegedly emptied out their joint bank account without telling her a word. What's more shocking is that this wasn't just pocket change. This was a significant amount meant for household needs and their children's future. People close to Teyana say she's completely blindsided and furious. She's worked hard to stay composed and peaceful after their split, especially for the sake of their children. But this move has pushed her past her limit. Now, she's demanding answers, legal support, and maybe even revenge. Is this just a messy divorce play, or did Iman cross a serious line? Let's break it all down because things are getting heated fast. According to people close to the situation, Teyana first found out something was wrong when a scheduled payment for their family home didn't go through. Confused and alarmed, she checked their joint account only to discover that it had been completely drained. There was no heads up, no text, no explanation, just a zero balance staring back at her. Friends say she was absolutely livid, pacing back and forth and trying to reach Iman for answers. Not only was this a betrayal of trust, but it also put her in a vulnerable financial position she wasn't expecting. The worst part? This joint account was used for bills, staff, school expenses, and essential living costs. Now, everything's on hold. Insiders close to Iman are offering a very different explanation. They claim that Iman felt justified in pulling the money because he's been handling major financial responsibilities lately. Allegedly, he's been covering child support, legal fees, and housing costs for the kids, while Teyana focused on her projects. His side says the joint account felt more like his money than a shared resource, and that he was just protecting what was his before legal restrictions kicked in. Some even suggest he feared Teyana might try to block access if things went south. Whether that fear was real or imagined, this move now has serious consequences. Industry insiders are whispering that the amount taken wasn't small. Somewhere between $400,000 and $750,000 vanished overnight. That's not a casual withdrawal. This was money set aside for serious life expenses like taxes, property upkeep, school tuition, and staff salaries. Teyana's legal team is already deep into tracing every transaction and identifying where the funds ended up. They want proof, accountability, and possibly restitution. Right now, everyone's watching closely to see if Iman used the money for personal purchases or moved it to another protected account. Teyana hasn't made a public statement yet, but her inner circle says she's furious and considering all legal options. Privately, she feels betrayed and deeply hurt, not just by the financial hit, but by the way Iman handled it. They had both promised to keep things mature for the kids, and this felt like a sneaky, cold move. Friends say she's in contact with lawyers and is preparing for a serious court response if things don't get resolved. She's also reportedly demanding full transparency on all financial matters moving forward. This may be the end of any civility left between them. Iman's team is now pushing back hard against the growing backlash, trying to control the narrative. Before it causes lasting damage to his reputation and legal standing, they are adamant that he didn't steal anything, rejecting the more severe allegations being made online and in the press. Instead, they're characterizing his actions as a strategic move to secure his own financial footing amid an increasingly tense separation. According to his camp, the joint account in question had become imbalanced in its usage, with Iman feeling like he was no longer in control of how the funds were being managed or spent. His representatives claim that the money he moved wasn't an act of betrayal, but a necessary decision to ensure he wasn't left in a financially vulnerable position. They also claim that Teyana still has access to other private accounts and resources, suggesting that the funds Iman redirected were only a fraction of the overall financial picture. One insider even went as far as to say that Teyana had been gradually draining the joint account herself for personal reasons over time, hinting that her actions may have triggered Iman's response. However, Teyana has firmly denied this claim, calling it a deflection tactic meant to take attention away from what she sees as a blatant act of financial betrayal. With two very different stories being told, the narrative has shifted into a tug-of-war between two competing versions of reality. One that centers on control and financial self-preservation, and another that feels more like betrayal and manipulation. As this controversy gains momentum, it's becoming clear that the consequences are being felt far beyond just the two people involved. Unfortunately, the ones caught in the middle of this financial and emotional chaos are the children. Sources close to the situation report that some payments related to their care have already been affected by the missing funds. Private school, tuition, extracurricular activity fees, and even the nanny's paycheck have reportedly been delayed or disrupted as a result. For Teyana, this meant having to scramble to cover these critical expenses herself, bearing the brunt of the financial hit while still trying to keep life as normal as possible for the kids. Though she has managed to keep things afloat for now, those close to her say the pressure is immense and unfairly placed on her shoulders. Iman, for his part, is continuing to defend his actions. He insists that he's still contributing and doing what he can to support the family, claiming that his decision to move the money wasn't about hurting anyone, but about making sure he didn't get blindsided financially. However, this justification is doing little to ease the mounting tension between the two parents. The situation has reached a point where their personal conflict is now beginning to bleed into their family life, something neither of them likely wanted or expected when they first parted ways. What might have started as a disagreement over financial boundaries has now become a more complex and emotionally loaded problem, with real consequences for the children involved. Meanwhile, social media has exploded with passionate takes on the situation. Fans and followers are not holding back, and the public opinion is deeply split. On one side, there are those who feel that Iman crossed a serious line, accusing him of acting selfishly and recklessly at a time when stability should have been the priority. These critics argue that, regardless of his motivations, his actions disrupted the lives of his children and placed undue stress on Teyana, which can't be justified under any circumstances. Others, however, have taken Iman's side, saying that he had every right to protect his financial interests before the legal system could intervene and possibly restrict his access to funds. These supporters argue that money often becomes a weapon in messy breakups, and that Iman simply beat Teyana to the punch. In fact, several fans have drawn parallels between this situation and other high-profile celebrity separations, pointing out how money almost always becomes the first battleground. There's a growing belief that this is just the latest example of how quickly things can spiral when emotions and finances collide in the public eye. With each side making bold moves and leveling accusations, it's starting to feel less like a personal dispute and more like a full-scale financial war, fought under the watchful eye of the public. Legal experts, particularly celebrity divorce attorneys, are now weighing in, and their assessments could foreshadow serious consequences for Iman. While it's true that if the account was still legally joint, he may not have broken any specific laws by moving the money, that doesn't mean his actions won't carry repercussions. In family court, intent matters a lot. Judges often look beyond the technicalities and consider whether someone acted in good faith, especially when the welfare of children is involved. If Iman's actions are deemed to have been selfish, deceptive, or manipulative, that could significantly hurt his standing in any ongoing legal proceedings. Teyana's legal team is reportedly preparing to respond with claims of financial manipulation, a move that could influence everything from custody negotiations to the final division of assets. They are likely to argue that Iman's unilateral decision to drain the account, regardless of his justification, was an act of bad faith that disrupted their children's stability and undermined trust. Legal analysts caution that in cases like this, a move that might seem smart in the short term can backfire in the long term. If a judge decides that Iman's actions were not only premature but harmful to the broader co-parenting arrangement, he could face penalties or lose leverage in key decisions going forward. There's also the emotional toll to consider. As both Teyana and Iman navigate this volatile chapter, the strain is visible. What may have once been a private struggle between two individuals trying to untangle their lives has now become a public spectacle with legal, financial, and familial implications. Their children, too young to understand the nuances, are being impacted by the tension, instability, and the emotional upheaval that inevitably comes with such high-profile disputes. With so many layers unfolding at once, money, parenting, legal, battles, and public perception, it's hard to say where this story will go next. But one thing is certain: every action taken from this point forward will carry even greater weight. Whether the two parties can find a path toward cooperation or continue down the road of conflict may determine not just how their assets are split, but how their children remember this difficult time in their lives. And in the end, that's a legacy neither Iman nor Teyana likely intended to leave behind. Teyana isn't just going to let this slide. Insiders say she's already filed paperwork to freeze any remaining joint assets and is working to build a case for potential damages. She wants full financial disclosure from Iman's team and is making sure her legal protection is airtight. Her focus is not only on recovering the funds, but also protecting her kids from further instability. This financial betrayal may push what was a quiet separation into a nasty courtroom fight, and she's preparing for the long haul. Iman's image is now hanging by a thread. Up until this point, many fans saw him as a dedicated dad and supportive ex, someone trying to move on gracefully. But this latest move has changed the tone completely. Media outlets are already calling his actions underhanded, and even some of his own fans are stepping back. If he doesn't come forward with a clear, honest explanation soon, he risks losing both public sympathy and legal footing. His future as a co-parent and a public figure might depend on how he handles this fallout in the coming weeks. Do you think Iman was wrong to take the money from their joint account without saying anything? Or was he just trying to protect himself? Before the legal drama began? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more updates as this wild breakup story unfolds.